This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to the latest episode of Doc and Jock, featured on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Huge show today. The Red Wings letting everybody down yet again. Another is it a realistic March swoon? The fans were not happy at LCA, booing the Red Wings against the Senators. My goodness, what the hell is up with the Senators against the Red Wings? For some reason, the Red Wings just cannot find any answers against Ottawa. We'll talk about Kevin McGonigle. Is he a prodigal son? Is he going to carry the Detroit Tigers? He is arguably the top one or two prospects in all of baseball. He makes the squad. Hell yeah. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing what goes down and how it all shakes out. And as always, we got to talk about the Detroit Lions. Brad Holmes spent an hour on a local podcast, and to finish off, a mock draft to see how the Detroit Lions are going to handle the draft. Joining me, as always, my guy Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, my friend?
And a whole lot to get into, and it doesn't really sound like a whole lot if it's all that good. I mean, I guess we should maybe start with the surprise, Kevin McGonigle making the opening day roster for the Detroit Tigers. I was pretty shocked by this. When this news came down, I was taken aback because the organization themselves, up until this offseason, has kind of done everything on the cheap. I expected him to spend the first couple of weeks down in AAA, and once they were able to procure enough service time to bring him up where they got the extra year, that was when I assumed that he would be up with the big league ball club. I didn't think he was going to be up until late April, beginning of May, but he's going to make the opening day roster. He's going to, I'm assuming, going to be starting at shortstop. So Javi Baez will be bumped to your utility player. How shocked were you when you found out that McGonigle was making the opening day roster for the Detroit Tigers?
Hell yeah, right? He's a prodigal son, and I'm just curious what level of success he's going to have. I mean, he balled out. He skipped AAA. That's hell yeah. That's awesome. I'm thrilled. I'm hoping for the fan base that he's got an opportunity to actually live up to the hype, right? Was he overhyped, Cuz? Or is this something that can potentially deliver for the fan base? Cuz, number 2 prospect, I think, in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I think he did everything he was supposed to do during training camp, right? Like he's done everything that every place he's been, he's excelled and he's succeeded. So it feels like, seems like, sounds like he's the real deal. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he is facing major league ball players and guys who aren't in training camp, basically working on stuff. You know, there have been stories in the past of a guy like Rick Porcello getting shelled for 13 runs in a preseason game, and it's because the entire time he was throwing fastballs, working on fastball location. You know, so it's different when you come up, because guys aren't working on things. Guys aren't throwing you meatballs or aren't throwing the same pitch in the same spot. But by all accounts, he's got a great eye. He takes good walks. He has good power. He has the ability to make contact. He has the ability to move the ball around the field, and he's not a liability when he's playing in the field. So I think there is a very good shot that he does everything that we want him to do, that he is the real deal. Look, that being said, I could see him getting sent down once, maybe twice. It happens with all players, right? Like, you remember Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer would come up and he would be lights out. Things would get a little bit off. They send him down. They tweak a few things, come back up, and he was lights out again. So I don't expect his progress to be completely linear, but I do think he's going to show out, and I do expect a very big year for him, and I think he's going to grow into the position. He's going to grow and be a much better player than he is right now. But kudos to him, because, again, I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought this was going to be something where the ball club tried to do things a little bit on the cheap and try to squeeze another year out of his contract, and instead, I think this speaks to maybe where the organization is, and I think this is probably maybe the bigger conversation coming out of him breaking camp with the opening day roster is they're not trying to, I guess, do things on the cheap. Like it feels as though that there's been a philosophical shift within the top of the Detroit Tigers organization. They went out, they spent some money this year, brought in a pitcher. They had to spend some money with Tarek Skubal, and I know everybody's still very upset with everything going on with Tarek Skubal. But that being said, going into the season in his final year as a Detroit Tiger, I think we both are anticipating that there's going to be a lockout after this season. So maybe that was why that they were kind of dragging their feet on extending him and signing him to a big contract, because I think we both agree that there's probably going to be a salary cap or something like a hard salary cap in baseball going forward after next season. But look, I think, like I said, the bigger telltale sign is that this team looks as though they're ready to do things and conduct themselves like a real organization, and they're ready to spend money and they're ready to do things the right way. And I think this is just another nod in that direction. Are you picking up the same vibes as I am?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the opportunities that, the young players have. I think the pitching staff excites a lot of people. There's a lot of excitement surrounding what's going to happen with Verlander, with the new addition of Valdez. I think that, obviously Tariq Skubal, it's going to be a saga all year. It's going to be a narrative, but we shall see how it all plays out. And I'm excited to see what ends up happening, how it shakes out, how the roster comes together in order to win games. I think that just based on the fact the division's not that strong, a lot of optimism. I'm excited for hopefully the growth of Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson. And now you get McGonigle, and let's go. And let's see. And also, too, there's been a little bit of spice with the youth infusion of Max Clark. I mean, he's got the youthful wildness, I think, that you kind of like to see with some young players. He can make some viral
87 chains.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there's some intrigue, and that's what
we get Max Clark with gold fronts.
Right.
That would be sweet.
Yeah, he's gonna have he's gonna have the teeth. He's gonna have it all. So it's gonna be fun, and I think that you're lucky you're in the Central, which isn't, I don't think, the hotbed of baseball. So you can win it, I think, with 87 wins, and I think that I'm putting it at 90 plus for the Tigers, and they're gonna get after it. Let's just see.
Look, do you anticipate them winning the division this year?
Yes,
Let's start there, maybe.
Yes. I expect them to win the
I
division.
think so too. I think so too. And like you said, like you laid out, they're not in a tough division. They arguably have the best pitching staff, top to bottom, in all of the American League. Obviously, this is barring injury and anything crazy happening, but you've got two flamethrowers and you've got a wily vet. Tell me if you've heard that before. I don't know, 2006, ring a bell. So look, I think the expectation should be them winning the American League Central and hopefully making some noise in the playoffs. I think what'll happen is come trade deadline, they should be in a spot where they are in firm contention and they are dominating the Central. They should be making a trade for the big bat. That's the one thing when I look at this roster up and down. They are missing a big bat. You've got guys who you're counting on taking steps forward. And again, progression is not linear. You've got guys that you're counting on taking steps forward and big steps forward, but you don't have that bat that crunch time. You need a 3-run jack, or you need some runs brought around to tie a game. I look at this lineup and I just don't see it there yet. And again, guys can mature into that, but I'm not trying to count on that if I'm trying to win a playoff series. So I think there will be a trade where they'll bring a big bat come the trade deadline, and I think the expectation is winning the American League Central.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Win, and I think AJ Hinch is a manager that knows how to get the most out of the roster. It's going to be interesting to see the first couple at-bats. And so let's just hope when this airs, because the Tigers have been good about putting out information, you may still be able to catch the new Detroit Tigers network on your cable provider, but typically the information that's been coming out has been saying, hey, the negotiations take place. Sometimes they go right up until the deadline, so we'll see. You might have to pay the $200, or you may be able to maybe take advantage of a free week and have an opportunity at least to watch until the beginning of April. So take advantage, look, and see, but we'll see how it all shakes out with how you can even watch the Tigers because, obviously FanDuel's gone in terms of the option to watch the Tigers, but they have a new network, so we'll see how it all shakes out the first week of the season. And then you go out west, you play San Diego, so we'll report back, and next week we'll be on the precipice of opening day, the home opener in Detroit. So it's gonna be a fun time, a very fun time. Before we talk about Brad Holmes and everything, we'll talk about the Red Wings and Pistons here real fast. Clearly, because the Red Wings have dropped the ball yet again. 2 huge points left on the table. And what was disappointing was, okay, fine, Ottawa, they have your number, but they were down like 4 or 5 key players, 4 or 5 key defensemen that weren't there. So you would have expected that the Red Wings would pounce knowing the desperation. No, you're down 3-0, crowd's booing, and you get 2 cheap goals. And what was crazy was I was listening to the game mostly on the radio, and it's like, all right, you get a power play late in the game. One of the worst power plays you're ever going to see. You barely scratch the surface of getting shots. And then, 10 seconds left. Yeah, I don't think I'm a fan of DeBrincat throwing down. Now, it's cool to see, but I'm not a fan of your best player, your goal scorer, throwing down with 8 seconds left. You need the points. And the Red Wings have been miraculous in the past. So it just was, disappointing, further inflaming the fan base. And really, people are talking about Steve Yzerman. They're talking about another collapse. Wow. Credit to Dylan Larkin for gutting it out and scoring a goal, helping the team win. It's good to see the leadership. But by and large, when you look at the Red Wings, cuz it's just hard to trust. I said that. I sat here and championed that they could make the playoffs, but they don't play physical. They don't give anybody any reason to doubt that they can just knock around our guys. You got guys laying on the ice and everybody just standing there with their hand on their stick like, yeah, well, that sucks that happened. Like, come on, dude, knock someone's ass out. They're taking liberties with your players, not when it's 8 seconds left in the game and you need the points. Like, come on, dude. Did the Ottawa loss, now knowing that you're now behind Ottawa as we speak and the Islanders, is the hill getting – listen, it may not be one of those deals where not making the playoffs is a disaster because you may actually need 100 points to get to the playoffs. That's how good the conference is. You use that as an excuse, or you say, I don't care. If you need 104 points, fucking get 104 points.
Oh, look, I'm at the point where I look at this team and it's just the way they're built. It's the way Steve Yzerman put this team together, and it's the way he has put this team together. And he really hasn't learned anything. I mean, this will be now the 4th March in a row where the team is vying for a playoff spot, and then we'll roll into April and they'll be outside of the playoffs and they're not going to make it. I told you last week I didn't think this team was making it. I thought they were dead on arrival. I still think this team is dead on arrival, and the game against Boston didn't help. The game against Ottawa didn't help. What you're seeing on the ice not helping or pushing me in the direction where I believe that they're going to make the playoffs. I had this conversation with my dad yesterday. He came over to see the baby, and we were sitting there talking. He's like, "What do you think about the Red Wings?" And I was like, "I don't think they're making it. I think this is going to be another March where they're just going to kind of, end up packing in and just packing sand." And I think we really have to start looking at Yzerman. I was like, you know what the problem is? And this is the way I see it. This is what I think is the issue with this team. If you go back to the late 90s and you go back to the early 2000s, there was a point where this team would just find ways to lose games. They would just figure out ways where they would end up costing themselves. Like, I remember watching the San Jose series, and I think it was 1992 maybe, and there was the goal that everybody remembers was Chris Osgood giving it up from center ice. And it's one of those things that just kind of stick with you because they couldn't figure out how to win games. They couldn't figure out how to put games away. There was something off. There was something wrong with the team, and you had to have a guy like Scotty Bowman come in and really revamp it and change the way they played and change the players that were on this team. And that's what I think has to happen here. I think Steve Yzerman, as much as I love him, he has to go. The Yzer plan is not working. You've got guys on this roster who have been here through all of this, and it's not getting any better. They don't know how to win. There's not a toughness on this team. There's not a willingness to do what needs to be done to win a hockey game.
Oh.
And if you can't win a hockey game in March, you're not going to win a hockey game in April or May or even early June. And these guys haven't figured out how to win. They haven't figured out how to do some of the tough stuff to get victories. And that's what I think it is, because there comes a point where your goal scorers have to sacrifice. And whether that sacrifice means playing more defense, or whether sacrifice means laying your body on the line and blocking a shot, or going into a corner and winning a battle in a corner to get a puck out so a guy can score. It's those types of little things. It's getting to those 50-50 pucks. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's those little things that this team just doesn't do. And then defensively, it's being proper in your own zone. It's handling your guy. It's taking guys out. It's making a big play when you've got to reach just an extra inch to tip a puck away. And it's just, you don't see it with these guys. It really feels as though everybody's just kind of in coast mode, and everybody's kind of looking at the other guy to pick up the slack and help them get there. There's nobody on this roster besides Patrick Kane who has won anything of substance. Like, that's the guy. And look, Patrick Kane, as much as I like Patrick Kane, he's like 100. He's old. He's the one guy that you're looking to be like, he's going to tell you what the secret sauce is. He can't do it anymore because he's that far gone. He's that much older. Again, this is a guy who's coming off of having basically his hip replaced. So you look at the way this team is built, and you look at the production that you're seeing out there, and you don't have guys who are willing to make that sacrifice, and you don't have guys on the ice who have the ability to score when somebody needs to take over a game and score. You don't have guys who are willing to lay it all on the line. Defensively, they're soft. If you're not playing well in front of your goaltender, there's not a whole lot your goaltender can do. So, like, I don't even really want to get to the goaltending, because it's everything in front of him right now that is leading to these collapses. Can Gibson be better? Sure. But I would look at the defense needing to be better first, and the offense needing to do more and generate more. And you just don't have it. These guys, this team needs to be blown up, and it needs to be remade. The identity of this team, I can't tell you what it is. They are soft. Nobody's afraid to play them. It's one of those things where I can't tell you one thing that they do well. You know, like, you can look at a team and you be like, look, they really dominate the face-off circle, and especially when they get into your zone, expect the shot to be generated out of a face-off win. You can't say that about this team. Like, those are simple things. You can't say that about this team. It's not like they shoot well. It's not like they play defense well. It's not like they move the puck around well. It's not like they have a goaltender who stands on his head and will win a game and win a series. You don't have any forwards who strike fear in anybody. You don't have guys who are willing to punish you when you're along the boards, much less fist fight you. There is no identity with these guys. This team looks like a rough beer league hockey team. And it's frustrating to say, because we're 7 years into the Yzer plan. And I'll be honest with you, I think we're further away now than we were when he took over. He needs to go. This needs to be blown up. And you need to find guys, and you need to put guys on this roster who are willing to do small things, because small things lead to big things. They force turnovers. Turnovers lead to points. They lead to penalties. Penalties lead to power play goals. And you just, it all kind of cascades down. In this team, the way it's put together right now, it's frustrating. You know, like, how many times are we going to point to a coach and say, "Oh, it's the coach, it's the coach, it's the coach"? I think McClellan's done a decent enough job here, but you can't always turn chicken shit into chicken salad. At a certain point, we need to look at Steve Yzerman. He needs to take accountability for this team, and you haven't even seen that from him. And I think that's probably the most frustrating part, is the guy who's put all this together. When he does his end of year press conferences, he's almost defiant in what's been done and how things have gone. And he's almost thumbing his nose at the media, at the fans, and even at members of his own team that he's put together. It's all bad. It is all bad. And at this moment in time, it feels like his job is only safe because he was the captain, because he did win Stanley Cups when he was here, because of everything that's kind of gone on since he was drafted as the Detroit Red Wing. And it's frustrating to see.
Listen, it's a unique situation. You have a situation where you have a legend running the organization, but the fan base is a little bit perturbed at his lack of ability of putting together a roster that can compete not only to win a Stanley Cup, but first and foremost to get to the playoffs. We're talking a decade where the organization hasn't been in the postseason, and you would think that this legend, this icon of the game, who had success in Tampa Bay, would have been able to do this a little bit faster. So I'm a little disappointed. It feels like it could be a huge step back, but still time. I think 10, 11 games. You got to get as many points as possible. You might have to go 7-3. You might have to maybe get 8 wins out of this. So we'll see. The playoff push is on. The Red Wings are letting fans down, and the fans are not hesitant to let the team know. And LCA was the boo barn against the Senators. Now, because I think you and I both get a chuckle out of it, but this was not funny. The Doc and Jock curse hits yet again. We talk and we hang up the phone. We do our greetings and salutations, check in on our families. We hang up and then we find out disaster. It hit the Pistons last week right when we got off the air, when it was discovered. And it was a little bit of panic. We're like, wait a minute, a collapse long. When did this happen? And the crazy part is, outside of obviously hoping the best for Cade Cunningham, bro, the Pistons are showing that, wait a minute, maybe they got the real Robin to go along with the Batman. Maybe that person is Jalen Duren. The dude has stepped up, and they beat the Lakers without Cade Cunningham. And the Lakers weren't coming in off of a losing streak. They were balling out. So I'm very, very impressed with the Pistons' response to Cade Cunningham. I'm very impressed that they were still able to compete at the highest levels of the NBA basketball. They're well coached, and we might actually get what we like in sports. We might have a system in place that you can plug and play different people, different components, and it might work. Now, you still need more consistent shooting, but defense travels. You're playing well, you're playing hard, and you're getting wins. I'm very impressed with the Pistons after hearing of the crazy news about a collapsed lung. The scary part, cuz, is there's been some other NBA players that have had the same thing, but there might be a chance of reoccurrence. That's the shitty part. You might get them back for the first round or the second round, but it might happen where, worst case scenario, let's say you're up 2-0 in the NBA Finals and Cade goes down with another issue. It's bad. Hopefully he comes back fully healthy, and hopefully, if it happens, it doesn't impact the team too much.
Look, I think this team, as well as they are playing without him, which has been incredible to see, I think he is the driving force on this team. I think he is the linchpin. This team will only go as far as he is able to take them. So when we say, hey, there's a chance for a reoccurrence for him to have his collapsed lung again, it's something where I think the Pistons really have to kind of walk on eggshells here and really be careful with his care. The hope is that he can be back probably within the next 2 weeks and right just before the end of the season. So when they do get into the playoffs, the hope is he is operating at close to 100%. But then again, is he going to be on a limits? Is he going to be on a time limit? Is he going to be on, are they going to have to really monitor things? Is it going to be one of those things where he's going to be able to play a day and then he's got to take another day off? Like, how is this going to affect him long-term? Because the way I see it, if he's not there in the playoffs, and like I said, they've been doing a fantastic job without him. If he's not there in the playoffs, I don't think this team can get out of the first round. And look, I think they're doing a great job of hanging on to that number 1 seed, but I don't know how far this team can really go without him being there and without him being the driving force. He is the one guy who scares everybody else. He's the one guy who keeps other defenses honest. He's the one guy who can really help when everything else is kind of falling apart. He's the one guy who can really help uplift everything. And I think this has been great for the development of Jalen Duren, and they're going to have to pay him a nice contract. But this has been great for his maturity, putting him into this spot. So I think when Cade does come back, Cade knows, hey, I got me a number 2. I got me another guy who I can lean on. I think that's fantastic. It's one thing we've been looking for all season is who's going to be that other guy to really help step up. It appears it's going to be Duren, which is great, but you still need Cade there to help get the job done in the playoffs. So we need him to come back. Very scary. Like I'm still confused at how this all happened and when this exactly transpired, because it's like he went down with back spasms, and the next thing you know, it's like, hey, reports are collapsed lung, and you're just like, whoa. And I know that there's a thing where it can just be, it can just happen spontaneously, but this is kind of nuts, and it's unfortunate that it's at this point in the season where things are starting to wind down. The races are getting a little bit closer, and you're gearing up for the playoffs. Do you see Cade Cunningham being as important as I do to the success of this team? Or do you think this team could get by in the first round without him?
I think they can get by without him, but I don't think they get by Cleveland or New York without him. I think it'll be tough. But they've shown, listen, we got to give the Pistons a little more credit. They're playing well. They're playing at a high level. And I'm very impressed with the Pistons, and I think the thing that I really like is their hard-nosed gritty, their ability to rebound, transition, and they're getting a little better at three-point shooting, clutch shooting. I would like Holland a little bit more to take a step up, but not there yet, inconsistent. But, man, cuz I think that you can still make a run with this group, but it's been a fascinating look at roster construction and the ability to put a team together quickly. I'm very, very impressed. And you just hope that, like we said, Cade Cunningham can come back, have an opportunity to have success. And J.B. Bickerstaff, I think that there were question marks about his ability as a coach, but my goodness, cuz the abilities that he's got to galvanize a group, to be firm but fair, and to get these guys, a young group, to buy in, absolutely fabulous. And I think that maybe I was wrong to maybe trust the Red Wings a little bit too much as opposed to the Pistons. Hop on the Pistons bandwagon. I think that LCA's rocking. They give you a reason to support, and the future looks really, really good. I think you're going to have games against the Hawks and the Pelicans, I think, this week. So more opportunity at LCA to rally and support the Pistons. And I think that they go far in the playoffs. I think they can get at least, I think I would be let down if they don't get to at least the Eastern Conference Finals out of this year. It's going to be a good year.
I agree with you.
There's a chance, cuz.
100%.
Are you starting to get championship beliefs a little bit with the Pistons?
Look, I think Eastern Conference Finals is the minimum for this team. Again, a lot, like I said, hinges on Cade. I think he'll be back for the primary stretch run of the playoffs. So the expectation is at least Eastern Conference championship. And look, I think they can win that. Look, when you look at the East and you look at all the teams that are out there, I think they match up really, really favorably with everybody. And I think Cade's development, and I think this growth out of Duren really helps put them a little bit over the top. And I think it's going to make a world of difference. The Knicks don't scare me. Cleveland doesn't really scare me. Boston is probably the only team that scares me, depending on what's going on with Jason Tatum and how he's feeling. So it's really Boston that has me nervous. But nobody else really in the East has me concerned. So yes, championship vibes definitely for the Detroit Pistons.
Hell yeah. I think it's going to be great to be able to see this Pistons team move forward. Cuz, did you get a chance to check out Brad Holmes on a podcast? He did a sit down with the reporters, and it was a good podcast. I really believe it's not earth shattering. You know a lot about Brad Holmes, so you know his thinking. But there are now firm, debatable points that we can garner from Brad Holmes. And I think to nobody's surprise here that listens to Doc and Jock, I'm just not a fan of how he's doing things. It is a commitment to say, and he says it, I can't get into the splash market of free agency. I can't be as aggressive when we have our own to sign. And that's the deal. It's a strategy. We may not like it, but that's the strategy. You get what you get, and you have to handle who is in charge, and that's Brad Holmes. But unfortunately, I am starting to question if we're going to start to – I feel like there's more of an assessment that this is going to be the Steelers, Ravens, and Bills as opposed to the Seahawks, Chiefs, or championship contenders like the Eagles. You just want to be good. I hate the phrase, well, we want to think short-term and keep in mind the long-term. I hate that phrase, especially in the NFL where regimes change quickly. I hate it all the way around. But by and large, Brad Holmes, I think, has planted his flag. Role players in free agency, build through the draft, take calculated risks to get one guy that's going to fill a need, and the rest is, hey, come in and prove it. I don't like it, but you got to respect it because he's going to be consistent about it. He's not going to use free agency to handcuff the team for the long-term future. Is it terrible? Is this going to be the end? I think this is the beginning of the end, in my mind, of Brad Holmes, but we shall see because he's going, wait a minute, you guys are making all these assessments. You don't know until we start playing football. Well, I mean, when you sign a bunch of one-year guys and you got holes, it kind of lends to the idea that we think that the Rams are better than you before free agency, and they got a little bit better. So how did you catch up? Well, what did you think about what Brad Holmes said? Basically declaring, if you're a baptized child who we draft, you're good if you perform.
Yep.
If you're not, you get cut, you get the NFL business, you get the real world of the NFL. Is it going to work, or is this the beginning of the end of Brad Holmes?
Look, I don't think there's anything earth-shaking or groundbreaking or anything that came out of this podcast that we didn't already know. I think all it did was it just kind of confirmed everything that you and I have said and confirmed the thoughts that we have for this team and what their plan is and what they're doing, which I think is frustrating. And I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think it's flawed in the way that he's doing things. And I think he is going to be the reason. He's going to be the biggest roadblock in the reason why this team doesn't obtain the success that they're looking to obtain. And I think he is going to be the biggest issue with this team going forward. The other thing, like in this podcast, and look, credit to the guys who got the podcast and did what they did. The thing is, there's a reason a guy like Brad Holmes would ever come on this show. There's a reason that Brad Holmes would ever sit down and do a 1-on-2 or do a roundtable discussion with guys like you and me. I feel like the podcast was a little bit soft with him. When he gives answers and he basically tells you that they're going to sign their own guys, and that's why they're not trying to make big plays, or they could only really sign a guy like Cade Mays. Again, he wasn't the best center available, but he was the center who was most affordable for the production you're going to get. Or Larry Borum is a guy who they feel like is going to provide a really good role for this team, and he's probably going to be your right tackle. Like, when you get told these things, and there's really no pushback, and he tells you, like, we're trying to be good. That was the one thing I got out of the entire podcast, is they're trying to be good, and they're trying to be good on a budget. That was the big overarching thing that came out of this. And he talks about trying to be good for a long period of time and not doing one and dones. Okay. So you essentially, like you said, you want to be a team that is relatively in the playoff mix, but you don't have Super Bowl aspirations. Like, you're not willing to push in. I really wish the guys who were doing this would have really have pushed. And there was a quote that he had where he said, like, we signed Cade Mays, and after we signed him, we didn't have the money to be able to go out and sign another premier player like an edge rusher. Those are premier guys. Like, what are you talking about? You had Jared Goff restructure his contract. You could have had Amon-Ra St. Brown restructure his contract. You have more money available. You're choosing not to go get more money. And I think the fact that those guys didn't really push back on that is the thing that really bothers me, because, again, it just feels soft. I feel like guys like you and me, we're going to push back. We're going to have this conversation. We're going to be like, well, why? Why are you doing it this way? And I think that was probably my biggest frustration out of all of it. And at this moment in time, my I don't want to say disdain. I've started to dislike Brad Holmes a lot. And it's through these interactions that he has where he kind of lets you in on his game plan and what he wants to do, where I really start to dislike him more. And again, I feel like he is going to be the major reason that this team doesn't obtain the ultimate success. I feel like he is putting these handcuffs on this team. You did it with Kirby Joseph. You did it with Aleem McNeil. Those are two guys who, through no fault of their own, are hurt. Those are two guys that you extended early. Those are two guys that you took a chunk of money, which you're saying is a limiting factor in what you can do in free agency, and you gave it to those guys, and you took that off the plate. And now you're talking about essentially signing the 2023 draft class, guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, who you have control of for the next 4 years if you really want it. Guys like Jack Campbell, guys like Sam Laporta, who's coming off of a back injury, guys like Brian Branch, who's coming off of an Achilles injury. You want to sign and lock those guys up. While in principle, I think it's fantastic, I think it's flawed as a practical theory in the NFL, though. You signing these guys early does multiple things that hurt your team. One, you're taking money away that you could be spending on free agents that can help you get better right now. Two, if those guys get hurt, you're still on the hook for the guaranteed money. That's why it's called guaranteed money. It's essentially what's happened with Kirby Joseph and Aleem McNeil. Three, I don't necessarily understand why you would sign specifically, because the big name here is Jahmyr Gibbs, why you would sign a running back earlier than you have to. And like I said, you have essentially 4 years of control. You have this year, you've got his 5th year option, you can franchise him, and then you can franchise him again. Running backs get used and abused. They are put through meat grinders on every single play. It's dangerous to sign a running back because their longevity is short. They have a certain there's a clock on them, and it's how many snaps and how many hits they can take. And with Jahmyr Gibbs, he's been used heavily the last couple of years. And now you just took away his partner and the guy who was sharing some of that workload. You kind of phased him out last year. So Jahmyr Gibbs got an increased workload. Going into this year, Isaiah Pacheco isn't going to make you better. He has essentially been dead the last 2 years. I'm not expecting anything from Isaiah Pacheco. So when you look in your running back room, it's essentially Jahmyr Gibbs. So he's going to get the lion's share of the carries, pun intended. At a certain point, the odometer rolls over and the engine goes boom. And the one thing that makes Jahmyr Gibbs special is his speed, his elusiveness. That fades with age. You don't sign running backs to big, long-term contracts because they die on the field. You don't do it. It's a bad investment. The return on investment is not there. That's why you have things set up like a franchise tag, like a 5th year option, like the franchise tag the 2nd year, where you got to pay a little bit more, but you're not locked into a long-term deal. There are ways to navigate this, and Brad Holmes is choosing not to use the tools at his disposal. And I think that is what is most upsetting to me, because he is putting them in a box, and he is the one that is handcuffing this team. And he is the one that is preventing this team from being able to go out and get guys who are going to make an immediate impact this year and next year, because he wants to save money up so he can sign a guy like Sam Laporta, who's coming back off of a back injury. He wants to sign a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs when you have 4 years of control for him. He wants to sign a guy like Brian Branch, who might not be the same player because his Achilles rolled up into the back of his knee. And if you know anybody who's had an Achilles injury, I know a couple, their explosiveness essentially gets diminished. There are very few guys who can bounce back at 100% from an Achilles injury. You're generally never, ever the same. You might be close, but you're generally never, ever the same. And the one thing about Brian Branch, the reason he fell in the draft was his speed. The guy is definitely a hard hitter. The guy is definitely smart. The one thing, he doesn't have that big, long-term straight line speed. I think he was like a 4.6 for his 40. So now you cut his Achilles, and what, you're expecting him to get faster? Shit doesn't make sense. And yet, your general manager is telling you, look, I'm not willing to spend on another edge rusher. I'm not willing to spend more money on my defense. I'm not willing to go out and find either a right tackle or add a left tackle to the mix because I need to sign Jahmyr Gibbs early when you have 4 years of control. I need to sign Brian Branch coming off of an injury. I need to sign Sam Laporta coming off of an injury. To me, that doesn't make sense. To me, you're playing Russian roulette. To me, you've already shot yourself in the foot, and now you're looking to shoot yourself in the head. At this moment in time, the way Brad Holmes is operating this organization, I think he's going to kill it. You had a Super Bowl window. That window is now closed. You now need to figure out a way to prop it back open and get back in the mix. I know when you look at FanDuel and you look at all of the betting sites, this team is a top 10 team as far as Super Bowl odds go. I don't believe they're a top 10 team. I don't feel that they're a Super Bowl contender at all. I feel like this team is going to struggle to make the playoffs next year because you have way too many holes to fill because you're too busy and you're too worried about signing guys from your own draft class. And that's a problem. And Brad Holmes at this moment in time, I feel like Brad Holmes needs to go. Like if I'm Sheila and he lets me in on his grand theory, I'm looking to replace him almost immediately. Like this isn't working for me. You have finite windows in the NFL. Players have finite windows. And you looking to lace these guys with second and third contracts when you haven't won shit with their first contracts, that just doesn't work for me. And that's essentially where we're at. And I don't like it. I don't like Brad Holmes. I don't like the way he's running this team. And this is now my big divide with this team. I'm done with Brad Holmes. I have written Brad Holmes off. Like, he is essentially dead to me. He's frustrated me this entire offseason. He frustrated me all last offseason. The shit he's done in the drafts has frustrated me. And this team has gotten progressively worse. The results are there on the field. He's not hitting out of the park like he did early on. This guy is risk averse. This guy doesn't want to use the tools that he has at his disposal. This guy is the problem with the Detroit Lions. And I'm done with him. And I am frustrated.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? It's a long-term vision to get a contract like a lot of these general managers. And a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, maybe these general managers are always looking at self-preservation over winning. And if you can sell to Sheila Hemp that you made 5 straight winning seasons, despite the fact maybe you could go, 3 years after you make the NFC Championship where you don't make a serious run, I'm concerned. I am worried. My panic meter is up, and I think the fan base is recognizing it. I'm very proud of the fan base. They're questioning things. They're not just accepting what the management is telling you. They want a winner. And I think that's what's good about the Detroit market is that they support, and there's going to be some that support no matter what. But at the same token, the noise is loud, the discussion is real, and it's something that needs to be talked about because we don't want to settle for, I don't care if you say we're new money Lions fans. No, the goal is always the same. Just because you get back to relevancy doesn't put you as the leader. It puts you like, great, you're doing your job. Now, the final stamp of your approval is not, hey, can you get us wins and get us to the playoffs? That's the floor of your job. Now we're elevating expectations to get you to win a Super Bowl. And we know what teams do that win Super Bowls. Listen, I know a lot of people look at what others do that don't win, like the Raiders and the Cardinals. I'm like, no. Just look at last year what the Seahawks did. They went out and got a new quarterback, DeMarcus Lawrence, Cooper Kupp. They made a trade that worked. So if your general manager can't pick the right guys, then I want a new general manager. And that's the way it is. I don't care about what he's done and getting the team to relevancy. Great. It's all the same. Brad Holmes is the same as Bob Quinn. This is just a little bit more of a tease than what Bob Quinn was. There was no hope. Brad Holmes has elevated the hope, but now you got to cap it off with a Super Bowl championship and a trend towards the Super Bowl. So we'll see if not getting to the playoffs did actually make the team better in their evaluations and who they added to this roster. One last thing, cuz, in a review of a mock draft, I've not been happy with the latest round of mock drafts from these pundits. A couple of them have added, and I'm not a fan, and I think that many people are realizing, wait a minute, Caden Proctor of Alabama, maybe he's not going to be a tackle. He might be a guard. And this team just added a guard on Wednesday. They got enough guards. They got 5 guards. They got enough. We need tackles. Caden Proctor shows up in Field Yates' latest mock draft. He's a good scout. Definitely looking like a Mel Kiper 2.0 with his shtick out there at ESPN. Does great work. I just think that I would rather go with Blake Miller. I'd rather go with Monroe Freeling. I am not a fan of Caden Proctor. What do you make of Field Yates' 2-round mock draft? Who's the second pick that he's got? I just saw the first one. I was like, ooh, I kind of turned away because him and his buddy Mel Kiper have been on the Proctor train as of late. And I'm like, nah, I'd rather be looking at Monroe Freeling and looking at Blake Miller as the tackle. Maybe you don't even have to go. I think that you still got to go defensive end in the first round, if possible, if at all possible.
Yeah, so Caden Proctor goes number 1. And look, I'm essentially in the same boat as you. He's a guy who might play guard at the next level. There's no guarantee that he's able to play offensive tackle. I'll read you real quick what he writes. He says left tackle is a sizable need for Detroit with the departure of Taylor Decker after 10 seasons. Proctor is a sizable answer to that problem. Literally at 6'7", 352. He has the power when he gets his hands on a defender in the run game as well. Proctor Tape has up and down moments during his final college season, as sometimes his foot quickness was overmatched by edge rushers. Sounds like what you want, right? But the upside is immeasurable for the 20-year-old left tackle who started all 40 games he appeared in for Alabama. Also, I think you and I both agree they're probably looking for a right tackle. I don't like when you draft guys and then you have to switch their positions. I know you did it with Penei Sewell and he was able to do it. It was a little bit rough the first couple of games, but he really settled in after. I think you and I both agree he's probably moving back to the left side. So it feels like they're looking for a right tackle, which you could probably get later on. So I don't know. But at 17, a guy like R. Mason Thompson, the edge out of Oklahoma, is still available in this mock draft. You've got a couple of different safeties that are still available. Caleb Lomu out of Utah. He's a guy who I kind of like and I feel like would fit really good here. He's available. So there are other guys. Zion Young, another edge out of Missouri, he's available. So there's other positions that are available for this team that would help make them better at that pick at 17. So then we get into the second round. And the second round, again, I don't really know what I think of Field Yates' mock draft here, but Gabe Jasek, the edge out of Illinois. Certain players just look like they fit a coach in Dan Campbell's program, and Jasek is one of them. He's a hard-nosed rusher with heavy hands and dedicated to defending the run. 21 run stuffs over the past 2 seasons. The Lions must continue to stockpile young rushers to complement Aiden Hutchinson. So they address the edge in the second round. It's going to be interesting to see how Brad Holmes works this draft. I think you and I both agree you're going to have to add to both sides of the line, whether it be edge first and then tackle or tackle and then edge. My thought process is get the best edge rusher you can get and then come back and add a right tackle in the second round. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that any combination of defensive end, offensive line will be good, and I think that's how it's going to go. It's just hopefully the best player falls to that spot. But the thing is, here's the issue. Here's the problem. The whole NFL world knows about what you need. They know you need an offensive lineman. So just pay attention to who's drafting at 16, because if there's somebody that you like and somebody else likes the same position, it's easy pickings. The Lions know, everyone knows, hey, they need trench help. So I wonder if Brad Holmes will maneuver one in front to trade up maybe to number 15 if he falls in love with somebody. So pay attention to that. I'm more in line with hopefully you have a cluster of players that you like and maybe trade down and take a chance that Blake Miller's there. I don't think Monroe Freeling will be there. I think by and large he's a top 12 pick. I think he's got the upside and he's the name that people like. So we'll see. But I do think that this might be the year that Brad Holmes is like, well, I think I know that they know that I know that we need some help. So I do think that pay attention to Dallas, pay attention to the teams drafting just in front of the Lions, that they're going to play some shenanigans and boost up to get the player that maybe the Lions would want. So we shall see. Gabe Jackus, I think, is a good defender. I'm very curious to see. I've gone different. I've gone Mesidor and Jennings Dunker. So I've gone defensive end and an offensive line in my mock draft. So we'll see how it plays out moving forward. But I do think that the Lions haven't taken a first-round defensive end in a handful of years. I hope maybe this is the year that you address that position, somebody that can grow into the role and help this team. But yeah, we're going to start talking about it. Brad Holmes has put the onus that out of these 9 picks, he's got to hit on at least 4 or 5 of them, at least this year. So we shall see if the draft guru can get back to finding his mojo. We got to put out there the bat signal for Brad to get back to drafting guys that can ball and not guys that can fall down the depth chart. And that's where it's bad, is that your 24 draft didn't give you enough depth to be able to be comfortable with what you had. That's why you have to go out and get all these guys on 1-year deals. Your 24 draft didn't give you enough. So we shall see if the Lions have learned from their mistakes and pick up the pieces. But the one thing I will share is, guys, please be media literate, okay? You got to remember, all the media outlets are going to write, Dan and Brad are in lockstep. That's been said by a million general managers about a million head coaches. Whether you believe the Mike Valeni report or not, it was a blockbuster report. I tend to believe somebody that's talking to 500,000 people at any given time, that he's not just going to lie into a microphone. And also to remember, he works for the flagship, who has people that are inside the building, might have even been on that podcast that you watched, wink, wink, or maybe played in the league, wink, wink, that are on his show. So it's not that difficult for people to figure out who he's talking to. There's one of three people. So I don't just discount those kind of reports. I don't think it's a big deal. But yeah, if you're Dan Campbell and you're like, man, my future is dependent on the groceries you're cooking, you're bringing me. And I think they're okay, but it's kind of like, would you rather have DJ Wonham or Trey Hendrickson? It's like, come on. And I do think people are thinking that the disagreements are coming from the lack of aggressive free agent moves. I disagree. I think common sense would dictate that maybe he was a little bit, and just think about it logically, and it's not hard to put the pieces together. If the Lions had discussions with Taylor Decker, who's a lineman, he might be prone to talk to another offensive lineman who's close with the team. Maybe he said, hey, I'm not happy. I did all this hard work, and the team cut my pay. That might be, and that might be a Dan Campbell guy. Alex Anzalone leaving. Maybe, Dan was not all that thrilled with a veteran that was part of the leadership group just being treated that way. It doesn't mean that they're going to have knockout, drag-out fights in the office, but I'm certain there are things that Brad does that Dan looks at and goes, man, you took away my left tackle. Like, I get it. I would like him here, but at the same token, I do think that Brad and Dan still have a good relationship. They'll figure it out, but we'll start to have that discussion. We'll tease it for next week. If y'all got to choose one, Brad or Dan, who stays? Who gets shipped off the island? A lot of people are going to say, keep Dan. We might have a discussion. Stay tuned for next week. We'll have a good talk about the Lions, mock drafts, Pistons, Wings, all the good stuff, and we'll preview the Tigers season in a great way, the way that Doc and Jock do it. Make sure you follow Adam on X at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us at Detroit Podcast. Anything that you heard today, you disagree with, you agree with, let us know. Hit us up. We like the engagement. We appreciate all the banter, and it really means a lot. Like, when it's a random Tuesday night, the Wings are flopping around, and we're just throwing out for the thousandth time, hey, do you want to fire Steve Yzerman? I mean, this is something I posted 100 times, but y'all still engage with it. Y'all treat it seriously. It means a lot to just keep us a little bit in your mind when the world of Detroit sports happen. I know there's many more, there's a lot of engagement accounts, a lot of all that kind of stuff, but to keep the old vets in mind means a lot to me as well. At Detroit Podcast, your place for insightful, energetic, crazy Detroit sports analysis. We appreciate all the support. It's been fun to continue to broadcast and talk about this, all the teams in Detroit as they pursue their next step to try to get from irrelevant to relevant to playoff relevant to winning championship quality. We shall see who breaks through first. And I can't wait to break it all down next week on the next episode of Doc and Jock, which is featured on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.